I.S.S. is directed by Gabriela Coperthwaite and stars Ariana DeBose and John Gallagher Jr. Tensions flare in the near future aboard the International Space Station as a conflict breaks out on Earth. Reeling, the US and Russian astronauts receive orders from the ground. Take control of the station by any means necessary. I didn't have high expectations for this movie, similar to any January movie really, as it tends to be the month when Hollywood dumps their slop, but it's an interesting and unique thriller concept, so I thought I'd check it out and hopefully get something out of it. And usually when I do these reviews, I tend to talk about the positives first and then the negatives, but this is a very unique film in that almost everything in this movie was either executed very well or fell completely flat for me. And the positive and negative elements are so intertwined that for each part of the story it gets right, something else is dragging it right back down, and vice versa. So bear with me as I try to explain what I mean as best as I can. Let's start with the positive. The screenplay is super tight. With a runtime at an hour and 35 minutes, there is no fluff in this movie at all, and I thought it was extremely well paced. At no point in this movie did I zone out, it kept my attention the entire time. But because of the short runtime, the movie doesn't ever slow down to give us moments to care about the characters. None of the characters, even our main character, have a lot of depth, and we don't learn a lot about their backgrounds or their personalities, and what we do learn doesn't really affect how we feel about them or help us understand their motivations. I guess the flip side of this is that because these characters are so basic and are placed in an extreme situation, we can use them as a mirror and connect with any of them and their feelings at any given situation. But I don't think it worked. I never felt like I connected to any of the characters, and I didn't really have anyone that I was rooting for or anyone that I was rooting against. I thought all the characters were decently likable, but I did not really care what happened to them. And it's not just the character work. The rest of the script is something that really did not work for me. It's very basic and safe, and while there were some twists, some that I liked and some that I didn't, for the most part, the story goes exactly where you think it does. And even within individual scenes, when a scene begins, it's very easy to tell how it ends. The script is also very blatantly in your face about all of the points that it's trying to make. Throughout the entire first act, we hear characters saying things like, the important thing is that we stick together, or they'll be looking over at Earth and saying, look, there aren't any borders. There's also some visual symbolism in the film that is so unsubtle that I couldn't help but roll my eyes. However, even with the shallow character work and predictable plot, I thought all the performances were fantastic. There are only 6 actors in the entire movie, and I thought they all did a terrific job at conveying the emotion and internal conflict of the situation they're in. These are characters that have developed a bond with each other. Some have worked together for years on the ISS, and their feelings are in direct opposition to their orders. I thought everyone did a great job at conveying just how difficult it is to make the decisions they make. I also want to note that the concept of a fight over the International Space Station seems pretty far-fetched to me, and I like how when one of the characters receives the order to take control of it, he literally responds with, "Why?" Because I asked the exact same question. Visually, I thought this movie was excellent. It is shot very well. There are shots where the camera moves around the interior of the ISS, which gives a sense of claustrophobia, while there are other really wide shots of the exterior of the ISS that show just how isolated of a setting we're in. Some of the effects were a little bit janky, in particular the shots of characters' heads inside their spacesuits, which in fairness is a very hard effect to get right. But other than that, I really liked a lot of the effects in the movie. Because we're in space, we're in zero gravity the entire time, so the characters are almost always floating around. And I assume this was achieved mostly with wires, which is really impressive with 6 actors in such a confined space. I would love to see a behind-the-scenes breakdown of how they did some of that. And to that end, the way this film can seamlessly convince us that we're floating around the ISS with these characters is absolutely an achievement. So the performances, the camera work, the visual effects, combined with a really haunting score, nail the tense atmosphere that this film needs. If this movie is not as tense as it is, it completely falls apart. But then the film ends in a way that really did not capitalize on the tension it establishes. Wrapping back to what I was talking about earlier, the script does not take any risks, and that carries through to the end. It feels like they went with the safest ending they could think of. Like, they thought I was enjoying the tension a little too much, and they wanted to ensure that I left the movie feeling as conflicted and pissed off as possible. I do think this movie is worth a watch, especially if you like these kind of fast-paced, anxiety-inducing thrillers. And I can honestly say that while I don't think I'm going to rank this as one of my favorite movies by year's end, I'm glad I saw it. If you've seen I.S.S., I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. And as always, thanks for watching.